Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to a brand new week and welcome to a brand new edition of what I like to call For the Birds. I'm your host, the vegan you believe in, Conscious Kurt, aka the Professor in the Flesh as always. And here on For the Birds, I like to talk about different forms of negative and toxic behavior, the effects that behavior has on us and our mental health, and what we can do to have a better understanding of it and more control over it in order to have a better quality of our lives going forward. I want to talk to you guys today about something that many of us struggle with and something that's kind of becoming a hot topic lately with the whole Wendy Williams situation. And I want to talk to you guys today about whether or not you should ever feel sympathy for horrible people. I'm sure you guys have come across the recent story about Wendy Williams recently, that she has dementia and has a whole bunch of health issues she's dealing with. And there's been a lot of debate online about whether or not you should feel sorry for her or whether or not karma is coming to collect and that's why these things are happening to her right now. And there's a whole divide about this whole thing about which side is the right side and which side is the wrong side. But as somebody who does believe in being a good person, doing right by people, and not wishing harm on people, I am also an advocate, to be honest with you, about not feeling sorry and not having sympathy for certain people when they've lived a life that displays that they don't deserve it. The Wendy Williams situation goes, I'm not happy that she's going through what she's going through right now. I'm not happy that she's suffering and all that jazz. But at the same time, considering the things I've learned about her over the years from people who've known her personally and just things I've seen for myself, somebody like that, it is very hard for me to feel any kind of sympathy for them. I hate to say it, I hate to feel that way, but unfortunately, it is the truth. And I'm sure there's many other people out there who feel the same way that I do, not just necessarily about Wendy Williams, but about other shitty people. And I'm here to tell you guys, there's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, some people just have no redeeming qualities from their behavior, their attitude, sometimes an ego trip, how they treat others, especially the ones closest to them. If somebody like that ends up having a string of bad luck or some kind of health issues or some kind of bad things coming their way, I'm not saying you should wish that on them and hope that happens to them and say that karma is the reason why it's happening to them. But at the same time, if you don't feel sorry for them, if you don't feel sympathy for them, and you just plain don't even like them for the kind of person they are, you don't have to feel sorry for them. Yeah, because some people, unfortunately, they make it very hard to sympathize with them. No matter how bad the tragedy is, no matter what horrible shit happened to them, just the kind of people they are, it makes it really hard to feel sorry for them. And I'm here to say, if you are somebody who does not feel sympathy for certain people and you have good reasons to not feel sympathy for certain people, then I have no problem with that. I personally have no problem with that. While we should be better people, while we should still see the good in people, sometimes in certain cases, there's very little to no good to even see in them at all. And if you get to that point, and if you feel that way about a certain person, then you don't owe them a damn thing. While I do feel strongly about this, I know there are a lot of people who would probably disagree with me on this. And they would say to me, among other people, oh, where's your heart? Oh, where's your compassion? Oh, where's your empathy? And look, I have all those things. I show those things to as many people as I can. But I hate to say it, some people have lived a life where they really don't deserve that kind of empathy, that kind of sympathy, that kind of love and compassion. But there's still a laundry list of reasons why people will still tell you that you should still feel sorry, you should still feel sympathy and empathy for horrible people, no matter what they did to you, no matter what they did in their life. You should still feel sorry for them anyway. You should still feel bad for them anyway when bad luck or bad things happen to them. And I'm going to break down some of those reasons why they think you should feel sorry for those assholes. One of the things they'll tell you about why you should feel sorry for them is that you wouldn't want the things that happen to them to happen to you. And granted, that's fair. You wouldn't want something like dementia or a life-threatening illness to come your way. And I'm also not even saying you have to wish that on other people. But at the same time, that does not mean you have to feel sorry for somebody else that it did happen to when that person that it did happen to is not a good person by any means. I'm not saying wish for them to get sick or wish for them to die or anything along those lines. That shit I'm 100% against. But you are under no obligation whatsoever to put up posts saying thoughts and prayers for this person. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I hope you get better soon. I hope you do well. God bless. God bless. You do not have to do those things for somebody, especially if that person did wrong by you. Is it a nice gesture if you do that? Sure it is. But you do not have to do those things for somebody who, in all honesty, probably doesn't deserve it. Yeah, there's been this whole talk about karma surrounding the whole Wendy Williams thing about how she's been a horrible person for so many years and done wrong by so many people for so many years, that this whole thing that's happening to her now is life's way of getting back at her. And personally, I wouldn't want to look at it that way. Something like dementia, something like that shit is extreme. And like I said, I'm not happy that she got sick. I'm not happy she's dealing with the shit she's dealing with right now. But I've just seen enough of her among other people over the years who've oozed this kind of shitty ass behavior that just me personally, I can't bring myself to feel any sympathy for them. As sympathetic and as empathetic of a person as I am and try to be, some people unfortunately make it hard and borderline impossible to feel those things for them. And I hope none of you dig into the whole karma thing too much about how karma is the reason why this person got sick or karma is the reason why this person's going through all these tragedies and all that stuff. The one thing I do maintain is that you should never wish those things on other people. Certain people you don't have to like, you don't have to fuck with, you don't have to say anything nice about at all. But at the same time, you don't have to wish for anything bad to happen to them. Because by doing that and exercising that kind of behavior, you are showing that in many ways you're not any better than they are. You shouldn't wish those things on other people, and you shouldn't want those things to happen to you, obviously, but that doesn't mean you have to feel sorry or feel sympathy for somebody else that it happened to, especially when that person it happened to did more wrong by people and did more wrong in general in life than they did right. And another reason people will use about having empathy for people that don't deserve it and having sympathy for people that don't deserve it is they'll tell you that, oh, you've made mistakes too. You're not perfect either. No fucking duh. None of us are perfect. All of us mess up. All of us make mistakes and poor choices at one point or another. But the difference between some people who have made mistakes and other people who have made mistakes is that some people actually take responsibility and accountability for those mistakes. If someone tries to be better, someone tries to improve themselves, and someone tries to actually make right the things they made wrong, someone like that I can have some empathy for. Someone like that I can maybe eventually forgive. But there's a difference between somebody who takes accountability and tries to do right and somebody else who just keeps making those poor choices, keeps doing wrong by people, and does not show any kind of remorse for it. Because there's a big difference between making mistakes and behavior patterns. If somebody does something wrong once or twice and they apologize for it and they do their best to make sure that shit does not happen again, that's somebody who has learned their lesson. But somebody who just makes a pattern out of poor behavior and a pattern out of treating people poorly and a pattern out of being a douchebag, it's clear that they haven't learned anything. It's clear that they have a horrible spirit. And it's clear that somebody like that does not deserve any sympathy if something bad were to happen to them. Yeah, because people do make mistakes. People do mess up. But some people choose to learn from those mistakes, and some people choose to just keep doing them. And also, to add to that, some mistakes are way different from other mistakes. For instance, in an NBA game, if a basketball player refuses to pass the ball to his teammate who's wide open and chooses to take the last shot himself, even though he's not open, and he misses the shot and costs him the game,
that, in many ways, is a small mistake.
It sucks that it happened, but it's nothing that you can't recover from and bounce back from. But making a mistake like sexually assaulting someone, putting somebody's private business out there, and treating your employees and treating the people that work for you like shit, those things are a lot more extreme, especially when that kind of behavior goes on for years, and that person who participates in that behavior never apologizes for it. Because there's a big difference between doing something shitty and just plain being shitty. And lastly, another reason why people will tell you that you should feel sorry for certain people, even though you really shouldn't feel sorry for them, is by telling you that you should not be a person that holds grudges. And hey, I get that to a degree. I think it's okay to be upset with somebody who's done wrong by you for a little while, but eventually there does come a point where you have to move past it. But I'm also an advocate for the fact that even if you're not holding a grudge against that person and you don't really hold any hard feelings for that person, that also doesn't mean you necessarily have to be a fan of theirs. And when it comes to certain situations, it's not about holding a grudge. It's not about being bitter. It just comes to the point when it comes to certain people, you just don't fucking like them. And chances are you've probably given them enough chances, and every chance you've given them, they have let your ass down. And no, you shouldn't hold resentment for the rest of your life and hold a grudge for the rest of your life and turn into a bitter asshole in the process. But also at the same time, it's okay if you just don't like a certain person. Because like I said in my last example, there's a difference between mistakes and patterns. And when somebody has a pattern of poor behavior and a pattern of doing wrong by others, then you have every right not to be a fan of theirs. And you also have the right that if something, God forbid, does happen to them, you don't have to really feel sorry for them. It's not that you're mad. It's not that you're bitter. You just don't have anything nice to say about that person. And that's okay. That's fine. Unfortunately, some people just push us to that point. And when they push us to that point, that's not your fault for reacting that way. So no, I'm not an advocate for holding grudges for years, decades at a time. I don't think that shit's cool at all. But I am an advocate for seeing people for who they really are. And when you see people for who they really are, and you see their true colors, then you have the right to treat them back accordingly. And while many people will give you excuses and different reasons why you should feel sorry for certain people, even if they are horrible people, even if they did wrong by you personally, there are certain reasons that I'm going to break down why you really don't have to feel sorry for those people, especially if they did wrong by you, especially if they did some evil shit to you and did evil shit to you for years. And one of the reasons why you don't have to feel sorry for them is because of lack of accountability. As I said a few minutes ago, if somebody messed up, if somebody made a mistake, if somebody had years of poor behavior, but they owned up to it and did their best to fix it and be better from it, that's somebody that you can respect. That's somebody that you can have empathy for. That's somebody that's actually trying. But there's other people who will do the nastiest, grimiest shit to others, even to the own people that love them, and show no kind of remorse for it. Never apologize, never own up to it, never try to change. They'll just keep doing that shit and act like it's okay. And when somebody does that kind of shit for years and has a pattern of that kind of behavior, it's sad to say, but it's hard to really feel any kind of empathy for somebody like that when something bad happens to them. Because there's certain people who had enough chances to do right and who had enough chances to fix their messes. But instead of choosing to do so, they still decided to go on that toxic and negative path that they were on. And it's not just Wendy Williams, it's politicians, it's people in Wall Street, and even other celebrities that you know and like who are guilty of this bullshit. And when they do this bullshit for years and then something bad ends up happening to them, you're not a bad person if you don't feel anything for them. Because you can forgive somebody who genuinely is sorry for what they did and genuinely tries to make it right. But it's tough and borderline impossible to feel sorry for someone who has not done any of that. And piggybacking off of that, another reason why you don't have to feel sorry for a lot of these people when these bad things happen to them is because of the way they treated others. I'm sure many of our parents and many of our teachers told us when we were growing up to treat other people. I'm sure our parents and also some of our teachers taught us when we were growing up to treat others the way that we want to be treated. And that's a lesson I've taken with me as I've gotten older, especially. And that's one lesson I've taken with me, especially as I've gotten older. But one thing I've also learned, whether it's been from friends, whether it's been from bosses I've worked for, or whether it's been from even some people in my own family, is also the way not to treat other people. Because if somebody gets off on making others feel like shit, making others feel low, and treating them like they're nothing? Why would you feel bad for them in any way if that kind of poor treatment made its way back to them? Because when you go through your whole life being shitty to others, putting down others, fucking over others, especially even people in your own inner circle, when you get older and God forbid face some kind of illness or some kind of disease or anything along those lines, it won't be so hard to see why there aren't a lot of people who are sad about it. Should you be happy and rejoicing and having a party when something bad to that degree happens to someone? No, you should not. That shit, like I said a few minutes ago, I am 100% against. But when somebody's built their whole life and even made a living off of shitting on other people, then you don't have to shed a tear for them. Because it's clear from their behavior and the way they treated others that that's the way that they want to be treated in return. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but some people just bring themselves to that point. And when they do, there's nothing in the rule book that says you have to feel bad for them. And finally, a reason why you don't have to feel sorry for somebody who's lived their life being a horrible person and treating others poorly when something bad happens to them is because straight up, in many cases, they don't deserve it. Piggybacking to my point a few minutes ago about treating people poorly, behaving poorly, and never taking any accountability and showing any remorse for your actions, somebody like that, I hate to say it, they don't deserve sympathy. If you have sympathy for them and if you have empathy for them, that's fine. But the fact is, from the way they behaved and the way they lived their lives and the way they did wrong by others, they don't deserve it. Because yes, we do make mistakes, we do mess up sometimes, but there are some people who just are messed up. And just like they don't deserve to have any power or any control over you, they also don't deserve any sympathy or empathy from you if something bad ends up happening to them. Because it's fine to be the bigger person, it's fine to be the mature person, that's all well and good, but just know that you don't have to be that bigger person for certain people. And you're not any less of a person and you're not any less of a human being if you don't feel any sympathy for somebody that doesn't deserve it. And while I am all about sympathy, all about empathy and being a bigger person and all that good stuff, there is only so many chances you can give to some people who constantly let you down and constantly remind you why giving them a chance was probably a mistake in the first place. Because many people had the chance to do right. They had the chance to be better. They had the chance to treat people well, but they chose not to do those things. They chose the life of being a douchebag, being an asshole, being condescending, and doing wrong by anybody they came across. And when somebody lives a life like that and never does anything to make right the wrongs they did, then that person demonstrates why they don't deserve any love, any sympathy, or any kind of remorse. Because they lived a life where they didn't show that to anybody else. And now that they're in a certain position, nobody else is under any obligation to show that to them. Because if somebody wants sympathy, somebody wants empathy, and somebody wants others to feel sorry for them when some bad things happen to them, they should also be willing to feel those same things for others. And when they live a life that demonstrates the complete opposite, and when they live a life that is the complete opposite of that, then you don't have to give them anything in return. Then there's a reason why others don't feel sorry for them. And when someone lives a life that's the complete opposite of that, then there should be no surprise why others don't feel sorry for them. Then it should be no surprise why little to nobody feels sorry for them when life starts to kick their ass. So my final thoughts on this whole topic are this. I believe in being a good person. I believe in doing the right thing more than doing the wrong thing. And I believe in empathy 100%. And while I do believe that there are a lot of good people out there in the world, unfortunately, I realize that there are also a lot of bad people out there in the world. And as much as I like to see the good in people, and as much as I like to feel sorry for people when bad things happen to them, those bad people that I'm speaking of, in many cases don't deserve any of that. And that pains me to say that about anybody, even if it's a person I don't like. But some people do too much wrong and do much nasty and grimy shit that you can't really feel bad when it turns around on them. Because as a vegan, one thing I can't stand is people who go out and hunt and kill animals for fun. And I've come across many stories where these people who will hunt and kill animals for fun, by a crazy twist of fate, those animals they're trying to kill will turn around and end up attacking them. And do I feel sorry for people like that? Do I feel empathy for people like that? I'm sorry to say, but no, I don't. When you go out and do evil, nasty shit like that, and you don't take any accountability for it or show any kind of remorse for it, then I can't feel sorry for you. I'm sorry. I can't feel sorry for you. And I know many people face that conflict as well. And I'm here to tell you guys that you don't have to feel sorry when something shitty happens to a shitty person. You can if you want to. It's your prerogative if you do. But you're not a bad person if you don't. Because while it's good to have sympathy and while it's good to have empathy, there's only so many people you can give that shit to. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, there are some people who are not deserving of any of it. You should never wish for anybody to get cancer, get HIV, get dementia, get Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, any harmful shit out there is. You should never wish that on anyone. And me, myself, no matter how much I hate someone or despise someone, I would never wish that on them either. But also at the same time, but also at the same time, but also at the same time, while I would never wish those things on people and would never be happy if those things happen to people, but also at the same time, if I would never wish for those things to happen to people, but also at the same time, while I would never wish those things on people, I would never be happy and rejoice if those things were to happen to people. But also at the same time,